Here we are. We are live talk with Becky Chernek, and certainly a pleasure to have our featured guest with us tonight, Natalia Geiner, and she is terrific. And we'll get into everything that's going on with A to Z Sync. And for those that are new to this channel, I'm Becky Chernek. And I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for auto dealers throughout the USA. And sometimes you guys can find me in Canada. So we are live here on YouTube. And so if you happen to be watching here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and like me. And then, of course, share it to everyone. As well as I'm in Facebook with Becky Chernek. And I got to tell you, you've got to subscribe to F&I Today with Becky Chernek. We have some talented folks in that group. You've got to join. And so here we are live on LinkedIn as well. And I have got Natalia Geiner. She is the CEO. Congratulations with the A to Z Sync group. And thank you so much for being on tonight with us.
Thank you, Becky, for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
Well, let me tell you something. It's really interesting where this whole thing is going as far as how dealers are meeting customers, engaging customers earlier on in the sale. And recently, I have seen, CarMax, where they're pre-qualifying customers on the lot. And now we have AutoNation. You text a number and they are pre-qualifying customers via a text even before that customer makes their way into the dealership. So talk about game changer. So I want to talk a little bit with you about digital retailing. And, so everybody has a different definition when it comes to digital retailing. Tell us, what is digital retailing all about, and how does A to Z Sync play into that?
So to me, digital retailing is really just an ability for a consumer to shop for a car, figure out what they're looking for, make sure that they understand what the terms and conditions of their loans could be, have a basic idea of what their trade value may end up being, how that impacts their monthly payment, and then submit credit application and other pieces of the transaction to where when they're ready to buy, their work translates into that direct experience where they're ready to go.
Well, I think that a lot of times dealers are saying, well, we've got our digital retailing going on here, Beck. And likely what's happening is it creates a great lead of some sort. But what happens though is they're giving some of the customers some information. Now, it really kind of depends on how much information they're willing to give during that digital journey, whether or not they really want to, if the customer really has access to understanding what their payment is in true time, right? Based maybe on a soft pull. And so every dealer, it varies as far as how much information should I want to give to that customer before that customer makes their way into the dealership, which is interesting in of itself. Because now we have some major car dealers who are giving customers the true payment or somewhat close to a true payment based off a soft pull before they make their way into a dealership. So a dealer is really having to make that decision as to how much information am I willing to give to that customer before they make their way into the dealership. So, okay, so now let's think through that, let alone getting into the dealership. And now some of these dealers, or a lot of them, well, we're just going to start the process all over again.
Yes. And I think that's the worst part. As a customer, I'm shopping on the website. I'm excited. I picked my car. I have my conditions. And I show up, and I'm lucky if they can even find me as a record, right? Far less actually everything that I've already done online. So that's the thing that's really important to us. And the reason we have ever developed a digital retailing tool is to make sure that everything consumer does online is the same as it is in store. Everything translates. We respect the work that they did. So consumer never has to start from the very beginning, because the experience of being disappointed the second you walk through the front door, whether it's virtually or in person, would really be a bad thing.
Well, I think so. So it's like, okay, well, you've given me some of this information online. You've given me an idea of where I need to be, but now when I get into the dealership, and this is happening everywhere, it's, well, forget whatever you were doing online, because we're gonna start everything anyway, and there's a terrible disconnect when it comes to online to in dealership, and I wonder why that is. Why is it? Because the technology's not there? Is it the mindset of the dealer, like, hey, we were only kidding? You really didn't believe us, did you? So why is that happening? Well, I mean, you're in these stores, you're having those conversations. Why is that going on?
I think from what we're learning from dealers, a fair amount of it is because, number one, I have this one tool that's online producing a payment calculation. Then the customer comes in, I'm showing it to them in my CRM, and I'm having to make this communication change. And then furthermore, I have to push that into menu. Now we're talking about three completely different payments, and you have to be a math expert to make those things work. So why not just have a single way in which that connection translates from online to in store? Doesn't always have to translate back up. It just has to transition in store. I think client advisors by default, they want to be able to help the customer and pick up where they left off, because then they can truly advise them and help them and support them and not have to start from the very beginning. And I think that's the biggest pain point, is that none of these tools talk to each other. Some of them have in-store parts of their tool sets, but they're not really being utilized by the client advisor on the in-store level. So not having those tools fully communicate from the technology perspective, I think, is a major pain point to translate the experience in store.
Okay, so here's how I see it too. Here's something else, and I see a culture shift in thinking, and it's, we don't want to give our salespeople too much information, and it's always been, whatever we do, we're not talking payment at all. Land the customer on a car, get them to fall in love with the car. It's all about emotion, and get that customer into the dealership. So it's very difficult for these dealers to wrap their head around the fact we are going to allow salespeople to have the ability to talk payment before that customer makes their way into our dealership. That is a tough pill to swallow.
Sure, but we let the BDC reps talk about pricing, and we let them talk about payments. And during COVID, they were all discussing all those things online with the consumer, right? So it's all about the type of engagement that's being had. And I think a lot of people do think of digital retailing, especially today, as really just a lead generation tool, right, that picks it up. And I think it's a little bit of a shift, of course, for us, as we're starting to going to be competing for cars and expanding inventory. What is that going to look like in the future? And we are going to have to put our best foot forward. But then if that breaks down once we start communicating with the consumer, we're going to gravely disappoint them and never get them in our showroom.
Well, I agree with that. I think that there's too much. We've let the genie out of the bottle. There's too much they connect code,
I like
and
Good way to put it.
it is. It's just like, I know a lot of folks are talking about, Caravana is going to go out of business. They're going bankrupt, and I'm like, I don't know if they are or what's going to happen. I don't know. But here's what I do know, is that the genie's already out of the bottle. It's already out. If it's not Carvana, come on, guys. You don't think Amazon, somebody else, they talk Walmart. My Jason Rice, I think, talks about Walmart is not going to go ahead and pick it up. I mean, they've already proven that customers want efficiency. I would like to think, and I think the customers don't mind certainly don't mind purchasing, would rather purchase a vehicle at a brick and mortar store. They're beautiful, right? Your
Mhm.
store, Shop Automotive Group, I mean, beautiful stores. Why wouldn't I want to go ahead and purchase a vehicle there? But that needs to be, we have to make it more efficient for a customer to buy a car and take all the guesswork out of it. Why? And especially today with the affordability crisis here that we're experiencing throughout the USA, maybe not in every certain part of the country, but there
Mhm.
is a lot of that happening. And the interest rates going up, customers can only afford so much. So why aren't we getting to that sooner rather than later in the process? Why do we make it so darn difficult for a customer to kind of, okay, think through that process online, but take
Mhm.
it away from them once they get to the store and hope and pretend it all goes away, that somehow we can create this emotion buying experience where somehow or another they're going to agree to a higher payment. I don't know that
And
they
then, of
likely
course,
can't
it
afford.
becomes really difficult for the employees too, right? How do you translate that in? So we are making it difficult not just for the consumer, we're making it difficult for the in-store employees as well.
Correct.
As long as we don't take crypto, I think we may be okay showing the payments exactly the way they are. And if they qualify for them, great. And if they don't, then we advise them and change and make do with much like we always desk deals, right? That hasn't changed.
So in the past 2 years, it's been, I mean, it's been fun. It's like been one big party. And
Mhm.
a lot of dealers have been doing very, very well. And now it's okay, things are changing up.
Mhm.
Things are a bit different. And now it's maybe time to roll up our sleeves and get back to work, back to really that skill set to um, impact performance training. How, I had a great conversation with David Spisak last week on training and implementing these processes. I know that A to Z Sync is all about process and training. How does that really help to impact stores and improving their performance?
Oh, absolutely. So, like David Spisak always says, right now, today, we have a store full of however many salespeople we have, is how many processes we have on the floor, right? We have 5 car a month process, 30 car a month process, 10 car a month process. So, I think first and foremost, we as dealers need to define what the process is because we have let some of those things happen to us. And I think we all know who they are. We haven't been really spending a lot of time or energy on training. What happens when we start selling commodity again and have things on our lots is everybody's going to have their own definition. And so until we streamline and implement a sales process by which we want to sell and we put everybody through that process, we're not going to be able to measure where we fail. So to me, training is immensely important. I always say that for every customer that you take on the lot, because that could be the very only customer you have, you should practice and have one-on-ones at least 10 times for what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, right? So instead of standing on the very front waiting for a customer to show up, use your time efficiently. With some of our partners like Nelson or Motorworks or Paragon, when you walk into the showroom, something that's really different, you won't see anybody standing around. Why is that? Because they're working on their one-on-ones, they're working together on their work tracks, they're training with one another. And it becomes a really successful way for them, kind of like we used to do in the finance office, Becky, right? We trained all the time. And that really becomes the success or failure of the dealership or how much we're spending on training. And it doesn't have to be just cost, it's just daily processes.
Well, I think so. I think it really makes sense and to create that buy-in
Mm-hmm.
from the staff, like they have to see it in action. So when A to Z is in the dealerships, they really get to live and breathe what's happening. Um, and in well, sales from the desk,
Mm-hmm.
the experience at the desk, the relationship between the customer and the salesperson at the desk to finalizing this transaction in the F&I department. So they see it, living and breathing it. Yes. I mean, you're in the stores for how many weeks?
Absolutely. And it really depends. We have a very flexible system that we put into place. So we have some dealers that simply streamline their process utilizing our technology and find different levels of efficiency that way. Or we have our professional services team that helps the dealers really define, execute, train, and get involved on the floor. And so we have spent as many as 6 weeks on the floor. And what we do is much like JM&A old style, right? Show me deals. This is how I sell a car, and let me sell it with you. We always come for launch because this is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where people start understanding. Instead of simply drop shipping technology and telling people, good luck, we'll see you next time for your bill, right? We really want to make sure that we engage with our partners and we're very much invested in their success, which is why we spend so much time on the ground with them if they so choose to have us. Every member of our professional services team has sold the car and has done it recently, not 2 decades ago. They very well understand how to desk the deal. They understand the financial products associated with the sale. They know how to talk to the client, and they're always happy to help. And watching somebody do it is always a lot better than being told how to.
So here's the thing. You mentioned it, not me. I remember when I first got, I was working with JM&A, okay? And I got promoted to the AutoNation division, okay, Natasha? And it was the complete opposite of anything that I was ever trained to do ever in my life. And that meant I had to meet a customer at a kiosk in the middle of the showroom to present this menu, right?
Yeah.
And this menu was full disclosure. Customers understood the terms of the sale. They understood what they were paying for the car, APR, everything was disclosed. And then, of course, products were presented to the customer. And also, by the way, pricing too. And all the payments were laid out. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How is this ever going to work? Now, I'm coming from a Saturn environment too, of previous. And I understood being upfront, and I understood the value, but it was still completely different. But what it proved for me, and a lot, we took the nation by storm. We proved that you could be upfront and still be highly successful. It was crazy. Nobody banging their head up against the wall. Like you had no friction. People were like really cool about it. They really appreciated the fact that, oh my God, you're not taking me into this box. I'm like, what box are you talking about? But it really made a big difference. So it's like transparency doesn't mean having to lose profit.
Oh, absolutely not. I couldn't agree with you more because when you give people opportunity to buy, they tend to do it if you educate them, right? Insurance is a beautiful thing. Most of us have it, and they have it to some extent, some extreme, some on the low side, right? Some are underinsured, some are over. But at the end of the day, it's a really important element of ownership of anything massive. So for most buyers in the United States, owning a car is the second largest purchase they'll ever own. And for those who rent, it's the first largest purchase you already own. Think about that, right? So selling that value to them isn't a bad thing. I think it's a great thing to improve their experience. And if we are educated in order how to do that and present it to them correctly with a value proposition we all know exists in that space, why wouldn't they find value in it? So I couldn't agree with you more. If we present it in the right way and tell them what it is and what it does, there's a really good chance they're going to agree.
So I've worked in the past, recently too, with an F&I online provider, and it's very unique in that they're presenting everything completely online and 100% upfront, completely transparent. It was ironic. I had Dora Musi. She's an F&I manager. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's from Germain Toyota in Naples, Florida. And Brian Kramer, he was all about, we're going we're doing this come heck or high water. When that COVID come around, he was going to make it. He was determined to make sure that we're going to get rid of this friction, come heck or high water. Probably another Brian Benstock, right? Determined this is how we're going to make this happen. And the reality of it was so interesting because Dora Musi, she is phenomenal. She presented those customers online and was completely upfront. They understood all the terms of the sale. And you know what she told me? That she would actually enjoy that better and her performance was better online upfront than ever before. So it is possible. It really truly is that if customers understand, if we educate our customers on the terms of the sale under terms of these other products and provide a value proposition, as you pointed out, it does make a big difference. It's the hiding. It's the, lack of skill set, if you will.
Absolutely, but that doesn't mean you need to give it away, right? One of our partners, the Nelson Automotive Group, they just got nominated for top 3 F&I dealers in the country. So, and they have a fabulous customer experience. They're very transparent. How does that happen? Well, the customers appreciate the level of transparency, training, and understanding that the client advisors have of these products, and they talk about it with passion. Right? How many times have you asked your finance manager, how come your gap penetration is 2%? Well, because you really don't know what it does or you're not bought into it. So back to your original conversation about training, if we train people and if we show them what these things do, and if we get them bought in, then they will have the customer bought in.
So how is it that your platform, A to Z is coming in, and the message has been, and maybe it's transitioning somewhat to a single sales approach.
Mm-hmm.
So how? Maybe not every dealer is ready to go there.
Absolutely.
So what is your technology, and how are you transitioning that to support those dealers that kind of want to do certain things a certain way?
Absolutely. Nobody wants to be somebody else, right? We're all unique in our ways, and all 17,000 franchise dealers do things slightly differently. And so over the last couple of years, we have certainly learned that flexibility is immensely important to people, whether it's come to technology, whether it comes to process. And the way that our platform works is it really allows you to enable the sales process that you want to have, so that both the customer and the client advisor are working off of the exact same screen. They're transitioning downstream all the work that has been done online with the consumer. And over time, if our dealers would like to move to a more capacity-based model that enables more people to do more things within the dealership, we can certainly help them that way as well through our professional services team.
Okay, so it's just not one fits all kind of concept. So you are customizing that experience based off of each store, each dealer.
Absolutely. Just think about different levels of integration. I think we as dealers have always been really passionate about doing things our way, which is why there's 17 different CRM companies in our space. Salesforce have taken over everything else, just not this space, and probably for a good reason, right? So we do integrate with multiple different companies. We try to kind of think of ourselves as Switzerland of integrations. So we're going to integrate with whomever you want us to based on the super stack that you have. And that enables you to have this very easy, uncomplicated experience with the consumer. Utilize one screen in a way in which you want. We're very modular based, so you can use as much of us as you'd like or as little as you want. Our CRO refers to it as like a Mac computer. You can only use 10% of it, and it's still better than what you had before. It's a win.
No, that's really good. So F&I people, I'm going to tell you, and we're going to get into a little bit of I also have this group. It's in F&I Today with Becky Chernek, in Facebook. Can I talk?
Mhm.
And so they're having a difficult time with this whole change, and they feel as if that an A to Z or anything close to that, or it could be the pre-qualify on the lot, anything along those lines. Their whole thinking is, oh my gosh, you are doing everything you can to take away from F&I and what we do for dealerships. And I don't really see that. I understand their fear factor a bit. I get it, because things are changing that quickly.
Sure.
So what do you
F&I
say to them?
I think finance managers, I couldn't agree more. I used to be one. We are the most skilled people that you have. So getting rid of us isn't really a benefit, right? But shifting us and redefining our roles, that what makes sense in my opinion. And what I mean by that is, who is your best producer? Who's your most well-rounded salesperson within the dealership? And the answer is your finance manager, right? They know the lenders, they know how to structure a deal, they have sold cars in the past for the most part of it. They know how to desk, and they can coach. So why not create an army of finance managers where this one person can train and support and help his team of people, 5, 6, 10, whatever your capacity allows for. Whereas a desk manager or a current sales manager is really very defined into a role of trying to structure a deal itself, but really not knowing anything about the back end to be that useful, right? We all love 84 months payment at 0.9% by the time it comes to F&I. So we know how not to do that, right? So why not put us up front, put that gas on the pedal right where it matters the most? Because if the cars don't get sold, you never get to sell F&I. So put us where we belong, which is up front in front of the customer to support the sale first.
So I'm not here to go ahead and, you know, um, how do I say this? I know that there are some good sales managers out there and on the desk who, God, they're very talented. They're really good. They come from the desk. I mean, come from F&I onto the desk, and they're darn good at what they do. No doubt about it. But then I come in, I see a lot of other things that are happening. And I just don't, for the life of me, understand why the dealer has given the keys to the kingdom to a lot of these guys that are on the desk. And what I mean by that, they shotgun deals. Don't don't shoot the messenger. They shotgun deals. They don't really know the lenders. They don't know deal structure, and until they can figure out a way to go ahead and get a deal bought, and then by the time that they go ahead and rob the profit out of the deal, right? So we'll just put a customer on any car will do, and we'll all figure it all out. And then meanwhile, we'll shotgun this customer into every different lender we can think of. And bingo, when we go ahead and get a deal bought, we're the king. Everything right. We're good to go. And meanwhile, had we have known our different lenders or deal structure, it could have worked out completely different and probably more in a more positive way for our customer anyway. But then now we are dictating to our F&I people, take the deal, do it firsthand, don't worry about it. Where's my interview? I don't even get my interview anymore. And you take the deal, let's go. We're selling cars today. And it gets flipped into this F&I office. I'm not sure what's really happening to F&I people today anymore. I think the skill set is eroding considerably, Natasha. I mean, you've been in the car, you've been in F&I, I've been in F&I. And I'm going to tell you, from what I'm seeing happening in that F&I role, it is just, it's it's a bit scary, frankly. And
Do you think, Becky, that the skill set overall is eroding based on what we talked about, which is lack of training?
yes, I do. I really do. And the fact it's been a joyride for the past 2 years. And dealers are like, hey, we're doing good. We're making a tremendous amount of profit. Just leave well enough alone. Just leave it alone. We're all good until we're not all good. Until, it always seems that success, right? it certainly it's good while it's happening, but it certainly can erode our skill set at the same time. And then we find we're empty-handed when the seasons change, and the seasons are changing. And so where's this skill set? Well, we don't have that. And so I think it's essential. Of course I do. I'm in training. I do training. That's what I do. I'm in dealership. I consult dealers. I consult F&I people and work with them to help them to understand to not only F&I, but also sales, also at the desk, which is obviously really important. But understanding how our business is changing to make a greater impact, just like you. I'm not in stores for 6 weeks, though.
Well, we are not
I don't
always either,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It
yeah,
really
yeah.
depends on the size of the dealer and what they want to accomplish. Everyone has different goals, but I couldn't agree with you more that the erosion of the skill set is going to be very, very visible when the microscope comes on, right? We're all going to be in the position where we're going to be selling commodities again because we're going to have days in inventory that'll actually matter again, right? We're
Right.
not going to be selling it to everybody 6 months before the car arrives. We're not going to be order takers anymore. And I think that's going to be really important, is to remember what it's like to really, truly have to sell a car again. And we can't really do this for our employees if they're not well trained and then supported by the technology that it takes to implement that training in order to make sure that process actually comes together and and you can track it and you can measure it. Because otherwise we're just training without the ability to be able to execute it or report the fact that it's being executed, so that we know when again we need to be involved from the training perspective. And otherwise we're just kind of shooting in the dark.
Well, David Spacek, where are you? I mean, to tell you, the two of you should have come on together. I mean, but you're so right. I mean, if you're shooting in the dark, this is why we need that additional training to make sure that we have the proper skill set to stay relevant in the industry and utilizing this technology to help us be more efficient in what we do and how we do what we do. It just makes sense to me. And so we hear F&I people that are, they're very they have that fear factor when it comes to technology. And it's, I'm like, well, this technology is not there to replace the human factor. It's not there to replace you. It's there to help you to be more efficient in what you do. Efficiency helps us to be at a higher level of performance.
I completely agree, because technology is there to help us, right? It's not going to replace us anytime soon. It's going to try, but it hasn't done it yet. So we've got ways to go. I still have an actual vacuum cleaner. I don't use a Roomba. It simply falls off, the stairs and go down its way for a cat to ride on top of it. But at the end of the day, if the technology is not there to simplify, then it's not worth it, right? And we at A to Z have decided a long time ago that we're not really building things for the sake of building them, meaning we don't have these beautiful dashboards or things that 90% of people will never use, right? We have very, very functional parts of our technology. My dad's been selling cars for almost 30 years, and my dad's in his late 60s. And if my dad's not going to use it, then we won't build it. It doesn't have to be a Gucci part of technology. It just has to be very functional for actually execute and help the process and to help the customer be guided through the journey.
So many times, I love that. So many times this dealers go to NADA, which, everyone loves, get to NADA, and they see that new shiny technology, that new shiny toy, and it's,
Mhm.
sign me up. I've got to have it. So meanwhile, back at the dealership in real world land, it's like, what was he thinking? So how do we tie that technology into what's really happening and taking place in that dealership? In that, instead of, so many times I'm working with these managers and they see this technology as a workaround. It's like, You don't want to mess with that, Beck. We're going to work around this one. We don't know what the dealer was thinking. I can tell you how many times during that COVID, well, when COVID first hit, how many of the managers or even the GMs told me, we have something that we use. I don't know exactly what that is, but we'll figure it out.
I love it when you come to a dealer and you go, hey, can you log in? And they go, I don't know what my password is. Right?
They don't know the functionality and how it pertains, how it works within what's in their everyday workflow. One of the things Brian Kramer mentioned and talks about a lot was the fact that the entire team rolled up their sleeves. They looked at their process. How does this fit within my process?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what dealers need to be doing. When they look at A to Z, they need to be looking at that and saying, how does this fit within what we do and how we do our business to help maximize the customer experience? Obviously, the more efficient that we are is going to create a much better, robust customer experience and also help us to, why we're in business, maximize profits.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you're looking to maximize and improve your customer experience, but the only way to truly do that is through improving your employee experience. And how do you improve your employee experience in this particular case? Make sure that they know and are bought in what they're doing, right? So much like you said, these beautiful things get purchased, caviar gets brought to the store, and nobody likes caviar. It tastes a little fishy, right? So that's where process always breaks down, is the second that it hits the floor. And that's where I think it's really important that dealers get that buy-in, and what they're looking at is really going to be functionally viable for their stores. Not every technology platform is for each dealer, but making sure that it fits the process and the end goal is really important. And technology alone isn't going to solve everybody's problems, even though we've tried.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. I know we certainly have tried to do that. I'll never forget back years ago when I was having this one particular workshop, and this F&I manager comes in and she goes, "Okay, here's my menu. We printed the menu out. It prints out." So if you remember,
Yeah.
we hand wrote menus for a while until we got brilliant and decided, oh, we can actually automate this. Oh, yay, and print it out. So the dealer goes, okay, all problems are solved now. We can actually print this menu out. And she come into the workshop. She goes, okay, problem solved. I'm like, not exactly. You got to understand the concept behind it to get the impact from it. Just because it's automated doesn't make it all come together. You have to understand the concept behind it, the process behind it, and how it impacts performance. Yes?
Absolutely. And what did the menu actually do for a finance manager, right? It's simply streamlined and made it consistent. So they present the same thing every time. And what did it do? It increased the numbers. I think what we are talking about is very similar from A to Z's perspective. If you digitize your sales process, somehow it's just going to get executed. And what does that do? That leads to higher profits, that leads to faster deals, and that leads to everybody understanding what their next step is, and they don't have to think about it. Less you have to think about something, faster you can get through it, more it becomes your everyday, less decisions you have to make, more you can focus on what's really important, which is your customer.
So tell me, if you will, what are some of the drawbacks that dealers have with this whole thing? They don't have a problem. They're okay with that digital retailing lead gen thing. I mean, I'm okay. But
Mhm.
what are the drawbacks? Tell me, what are you hearing?
Do you mean as far as streamlining the experience in store?
For them, yeah, for them to streamline it from online to in dealership. What is their whole? What is the issue for them?
I think sometimes what we hear is just, right now is not the right time to do it. We're doing really well. Why change what's working? We're in a good spot. Sometimes we hear, well, it takes a certain amount of work to execute on, and there's not as many people to do it. And sometimes we hear everything out to, our digital retailing tool is really, I don't even know which one I have. It just generates leads, it pops it into my CRM, and then from there, this is what we do, this is what we have. And I think there's a little bit, if you will, complacency at this point, because dealers are doing so incredibly well, right? And I think sometimes what holds you back is if you are very profitable and the times are good and it takes some work and some re-implementation, maybe now is not a good time. But 2023 is coming. The boxing gloves are out. It's time to kind of improve and change and get ahead of it, because if you don't, somebody else will. And then they eat your lunch. Blockbuster versus Netflix, right?
Amen. I know about that. Good old Wayne Huizinga. Well, he's the one who also owned that had the AutoNation megastore. But the reality of it is that, yeah, I mean, as I see this innovation playing out, more and more of the larger automotive groups are seeing the idea behind the efficiency and streamlining this for the customer online to in dealership. And, one of the things that really impressed me again, and I'll have to, yeah, and I guess I just need to come back over to come over to Shop and get impressed too. But but I liked the idea behind getting everything digitalized and off the floor and making life really easy. I would think just that in of itself, and not having any of this headache, CIT issues, and getting deals funded sooner, within 24 hours or even less. That to me just speaks, I mean, why wouldn't I want to do that? Why wouldn't I want to go ahead and digitalize the entire experience and make it a lot more efficient and have my tag and title work and registration complete if I can do it? And what signatures I need, I'll get it. But the rest of the documents can be all signed digitally. Why wouldn't I want to do that? Take that freaking paperwork off the floor. Here again, we're talking about these FTC safeguard rolling, and updates. Get the stuff off the floor. Why is that such a hard pill to swallow? I don't get that. And then, when I talk to Dora, her world has changed dramatically from having any kind of inefficiency. There's no, I can tell you how many stores I've been in where an F&I person is trying to finalize the transaction with with the customer, or they're presenting a menu, and wouldn't you know it, here comes the customer from the other night coming in and standing right there by the door because they need to sign a new contract or some of the paperwork wasn't complete or right. What a headache that is. And some of these stores are correcting mistakes, or 50% of those customers that they delivered are coming back for re-signs or doing something else. And to avoid all of that, we can create a much better, be a lot more efficient in streamlining this process. I don't know what dealers don't understand about that, let alone forget everything else. Just that alone to me makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, if you think about, right, it's your own household. If only one person knows how to cook dinner, there's going to be days you're not going to get dinner because they are either tired or sick or overworked or whatever the situation may be, stuck in traffic. So, in my house, we both know how to cook dinner. So when somebody gets hungry, they cook it. It's really kind of the same idea, right? We teach more people, we open up the capacity in order to be able to do more. And I think sometimes we don't give our people enough credit. They can do a lot more. They want to do a lot more given the choice and the training and the opportunity. And, if you think about it, how do you become competitive in this new world? How do you become competitive to keep the people that you have? I mean, think about how much they were paid during the last couple of years. Can we afford to continue doing that in 2023? Who knows, right? If Elon Musk fires enough people, maybe we will have a to hire from. But right, we have to figure out a new way to pay them. And one of the ways to do that is to make them more efficient, train them to do more and ask more of them, and then we can pay them more.
Well, I feel like we utilize these again, we utilize utilize the technology to be more efficient, to help us to be able to impact the performance. And that means I'm not spending all my time cleaning up mistakes that I had from the day before.
Mm-hmm.
I can focus on that customer and by doing that, I'm going to increase my overall performance. I'm not having to revisit mistakes time and time again. That in itself is going to take me off my game. So if I'm more efficient and not having to clean up from previous mistakes, I guess I'm going to do a lot better even with, with my performance.
Yeah, Brian Benstock and I, when we have this conversation, he kind of relates his new process with A to Z as repositioning his management staff and, frankly, his client advisors to think about it as like a sport of curling, right? The customer moves down the funnel, down the line, and then they're just there to remove obstacles from them. It's an interesting way to think about it because it's a repositioning of what you do, but it's provide the experience and take the journey to where the customer wants to go. And more people know how to do that, more efficient the store becomes.
Amen. Well, if Brian Benstock is making it happen, and I know Brian Posh, and you've got David King. There's some big names that are, following A to Z, and they see where it's all going, right? Where this, where again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily. So we just have to make it more efficient for customers to buy a car. And as you say, if in fact we can make it more efficient for our employees,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that's going to speak well for the total customer experience, and it all plays hand in hand. In closing, what would you say to dealers that are just maybe on the sidelines, kind of waiting this through and kind of thinking, well, is this really the future? Is this really where it's going? What would you say?
Well, I think initially I would say, why not learn more about it? Because sometimes the fear of the unknown is the worst fear itself. So learn about what we do and how we do it. Learn more about what this model can do for you. And it may not be for you, but if it is, maybe an interesting something. Because doing nothing is going to get you nothing more than you already have. So do something, and maybe that is an opportunity to do something. So it's really just about education and about ways in which you believe that your store can move forward or become slightly different. Iterate, right? Because change is going to happen to you, or you're going to happen to the change.
Amen. So how do dealers that may be watching this later, and I get a lot of dealers watching this later, by the way, how do they reach you? Who do they reach out to if in the event they have some questions?
Of course, you can always email me. My email is not Natasha. It's Natalia. It's natalia.geiner@a2zsync.com. And our CRO, Brian Ali, it's brian.ali, which is ALLEE at a2zsync.com. Or you can go to our website, just a2zsync.com, and you can take a look a little bit about what we do and how we do it. And then you can request to contact us, and we will call you right away.
Let's do this, sync.com. And what's that phone number?
Sure. My phone number is 303-332-5680.
Hopefully I did this right.
Perfect.
There we go. A to Z sync.com 303-332-5680. Guys, do give Natalia, right, a call and check it out. Why not? I think that that's the direction that we're moving in, and certainly wouldn't hurt. That's for sure. So again, I want to thank you, Natasha and Natalia, coming on tonight. I think we've really dived deep into these topics, and I know it's changing, and I know that more and more customers are going to want to see things a little bit more efficient when they get into that dealership, and that experience stays consistent from the time that they're online to in dealership, and really creating that much more efficient workflow from sales to desking to finalizing this transaction, whether it be with that designated F&I person or with that single point sales associate. And it's all about process. As David Spacek said time and time again, it is all about process, and we have to do a better job to be more consistent in thinking that process through and utilizing these tech partners to really create a much more efficient way to buy and finalize the purchase of the vehicle, whether that be in store, offline, or online. Yay?
Absolutely. Thank you, Becky, so much for having me on. I really appreciated the opportunity, and thank you for the conversation. It was fun.
It really was fun. It was good catching up with you. It's been a while. Congratulations again, by the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hope to see you at NADA.
I'll be there.
All right, girl. See you then. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Thank you.
Bye.